10, 9, ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. Now is the only cognitive illusion, but also a mathematical trick related to how we define space and time quantitatively. One way of seeing this is to recognize that the notion of present is sandwiched between past and future. Is simply a simple hoax. That from the book Identified Flying Objects, which we talk about extraterrestrials. Today is October 23rd, and it is Sunday. I'm Doug, and this is Dr. Bill, and boy, that was a struggle to get through. How's it going, Bill?
Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm living the dream.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Sunday.
Sunday's a good day
day.
for this. Good day for this.
I didn't mind. That actually was okay.
We should think about
maybe
it.
we should consider it because,
Gives you
a little more relaxed. Saturday seems like I've worked all week and then I'm jamming in Saturday morning, maybe more relaxing. But it doesn't make us talk any less before we
So let's think about doing Sunday. Yeah. Saturday's a day to relax and prep.
We'll see. Yeah,
prep.
Debbie has a thing though. She takes Max for a walk at the river on Saturday. She might be able to change that. I'll ask her about it.
Yeah. Look
because
into
I
it.
like making the wife happy.
Look into it.
It's all about it.
Yes, that's important.
So, what do we got this week? We got a couple different things this week that we have been talking about. One is Ryan. Rogan Joe Rogan I love, but his stuff he does this every day. You realize that? Like 3 hours. I think he does an episode a day, doesn't he? Or a couple a week?
I don't follow Joe Rogan because he's sort of...
No, I don't follow him either, but
he's gotten safe, and that's because...
Oh, that's because he went to Spotify.
Well, there's big money involved, so he's got to be... He can't... he's talked about this. He can't... He says whenever they have somebody on the show, they got to vet him to make sure that, nothing's going to come back at him and all this other crap. So he's before... You didn't know what was going to happen, and there was sort of wacky stuff or wacky people. But now everyone's sort of safe and mainstream and mundane. And so he had Ryan Graves, which was an what planes were they flying?
FA18 pilot.
FA18? FA18.
Yeah, the jet. And then Ryan's... Ryan's talked about the fact he has seen these things at a distance. I mean, he hasn't really... Well, the new thing now is they turn on the FLIR and they're able to see these things. But what was interesting to me is that he talked about one of the flight crews that went up when they were on the West Coast down by our favorite San Diego area, but they were about 150 miles off the coast, I think. And 2 FA-18s were flying. It wasn't him, but they were flying in formation, and the lead caught this thing, and it flew right in between them, and it was a black square. Now, this is new to me. I don't know if you've heard of this description.
I have.
A black square encased in a clear sphere.
Yeah.
And it was only, I think he said 15 feet, they estimate, wide. I don't think it was 50, but they have to fly 100 feet apart.
500 feet.
Is it 500 or
I thought he said
100? I think it's 100 because I said if it was 50, he would have been able to squeeze through.
Okay.
But if they're in formation, they can do. So
100?
the lead pilot can look around and look at stuff, but the guy that's behind him and he's to the right or left.
Yeah, he's focused on
right.
He's focused,
and he has to make sure he's not hitting him. So,
well,
this guy can't look at stuff. So this thing flies through anyway. So they get back to the carrier, and he said he knew something was wrong. Ryan was there for this. He says he knew something was wrong because they got back down to the ready room, the flight room, and he was still in all of his gear. And usually they strip everything out immediately. And he was talking to the wing commander, I guess. and about this thing that he saw, and it just freaked him because it flew right between the two jets, and you're pretty close. And it's like at that point they're talking about it being, really a problem with navigation in the air. I mean, is this thing going to be running into us? Or, I don't think so, but I don't know anything about it. Nobody knows anything about these things or what they're doing.
Well,
I don't know.
one of the things he did point out is that they didn't start seeing these things until they got the new radar units.
The FLIR, well,
It's
didn't
new.
get
They
it
had
on?
new
Yes.
radars were installed, and that they weren't seeing these with the old radar systems. And I'm curious. I would really like to know what was the difference between the old radar systems and the new radar systems, and why they are suddenly able to see this. And another thing that bothered me about, all bothers me, but this, the Navy has been seeing weird stuff like this for 10 years, 8 to 10 years. And he talked about,
2014.
he's talking about that admiral of the ship, because aircraft carriers are admirals now. The captain of the aircraft carrier is an admiral, or he might have been.
I didn't know that. I was wondering why he said the admiral came down. I go, is that a flagship or something? But they're their admiral is always that on.
They have, I don't know.
Unless the carrier is always,
think
the command ship and the admiral's on it.
That may be what it. That may be what it is. That may be what it is. I'd have to look at
because if remember the hunt for Red October, and Fred, whatever his name was I think he was an admiral, and he was on the ship, and then the other guy, there's a captain on board also.
Yeah.
Of course, there's more than one, I'm sure, but he was not the commander of the ship. Anyway, so off that, but yeah, I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
What was I going to say?
He said that they showed it to him. They brought him down to see the command and control intelligence area, and he simply humped, seen, and walked after 15 seconds of watching this, and just turned around and walked out. And
I'm not jeopardizing my career with this shit.
Well, they said what Ryan said. He goes, it was pretty obvious that he's seen this before. This isn't the first time.
Yeah. Well, and it bothers me.
That was the Tic Tac thing, right? Or was that?
Yeah, or the gimbal. And it bothers me because the Navy's been seeing unusual activity for 8 years, and then they don't track it. They don't try to monitor it. They don't try to investigate it. They're just ignoring it. So we're having strange, highly advanced craft investigating or around our military ships, and they're just pretending they're not there. It's like, they're pretending it's not happening. I mean, they have the resources. You have you have a dedicated assigned intelligence team on the carrier that jumps into action when this stuff happens, and you do follow-up. They got the resources. Although I don't know now, I just saw a report which came out from some think tank that says our military needs more money. So, because our military is in bad shape.
Really?
Yeah, the $1 trillion budget isn't enough for them to do their job. So they need more money.
We're not doing this $50 or $500 hammer thing we used to, right?
Oh, actually, one of the things
I remember that.
I wonder about, it's like in China, or they always compare the U.S. budget with China or Russia. And they go, well, the U.S. spends so much more money than either of these countries. Well, every dollar we spend is probably equivalent to 10 cents that they spend. So, because they don't have, they don't have the markup on everything. And if they do, in China at least, if they do have the markup, the people doing the markup have a tendency to disappear.
Yeah. You don't want to mark up too much with the government there. Take advantage of it.
No, they'll try you and harvest your organs within a week.
Yeah, and the Russians. No, they're not. The Russians don't seem to have a very advanced military. Have you followed that at all?
I don't.
Military.
I don't understand. They have hypersonic missiles, and we don't have hypersonic missiles. So how is that?
We have them. They just don't work very well.
They just don't work. They just or exist. So what's the measure of
We're just saying we have them and we don't.
what's the measure of technology, the ability to, I mean, they don't have the
Yeah,
technology to do what?
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, they have nuclear weapons, and that's all you really need.
Yeah, I've
You don't
stopped.
need anything. They got submarines, and I always hear these stories about how they don't have they don't really believe in carriers that much. It's because they've got their submarines and they're all old, and I don't know. I don't know what to believe. I know you don't even believe the war is going. Is the war going on?
I don't
Is that
know.
still going?
I'm not following it.
Did you?
The Soviet Union just launched a massive brand new nuclear sub.
Oh yeah, they like their
Yeah.
submarines.
Um, Carrier groups, aircraft carriers are probably obsolete at this point with the
Yeah, they are.
new missile systems, and it's like the battleships before World War II. The battleships were the way to go, and now it's like then it was carriers. Japanese saw that carriers were important and battleships were useless. And we're saying carriers are the way to go, but the new missile systems like China has and even Russia, it's like carriers. If a carrier's just sitting duck, it's gone.
Dude, you could launch a cruise missile from quarter of the way across, I don't know, a long way
Yeah,
towards one of our carriers and take it out.
yeah.
There was no way we're gonna stop it. I don't think.
No,
You know,
and if you drop a cigarette on these carriers, they'll burn down too. We know that.
yeah.
So
So
it's.
yeah, they're full of aviation fuel.
Do you know
And
the
that burn was when JPA 6 or 8 burns pretty good.
It was interesting, this Ryan Graves, this pilot he was talking about. I wasn't aware of how short a flight duration these jets have. They can only go up for like an hour.
At Mach, but they can go at 0.6 Mach. He said 3 hours, I think.
3 hours? It's still not a long
Yeah,
time
he did
for.
say at 0.6 Mach.
I was just thinking about the World War.
Dogfighting is an hour. If you're
An
dogfighting,
hour.
you get an hour.
You have
That's
an hour,
it.
and
When
that's
you're out
it.
of gas.
You gotta go. Oh
Gotta
God.
go.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the old World War II planes that would go up and be there for days. So.
Yeah, the piston planes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the admiral left. Said not interested. That bothers me. We're not interested in pursuing this. Um,
Well, as the story went on with Rogan, I mean, he went to the East Coast and he made a comment. I was talking to Corey about that this week, and he says they appeared exactly with the sphere and the box
mm-hmm.
um, on the East Coast, Pensacola, I think, or somewhere down there. They were doing
Jacksonville, off
maneuvers.
the coast of Jacksonville. Yeah.
Jacksonville. And he says, they appeared there, and he goes, I don't know if they followed us or we brought them. And I thought that was a very interesting statement, or we
Oh,
brought
we
them.
brought them.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if he misspoke. Generally, fighter pilots they really have their act together. Or we brought them, and that struck me as really odd. Why would he say that? Where we brought them? So
Well, it's like the poltergeist thing from Skinwalker
yeah,
Ranch.
I mean, that's probably what he's talking about more
Yeah.
than we don't have this technology. It's clear we don't. If you ask your guy, we don't have the money for that anyway. But
My guy.
your guy, we don't.
I don't know.
So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's he's now part of Ryan Graves is now part of the UAP the task force. I don't know do you know what it's called? But
No, I don't.
his main concern is it's air collision. I mean, this keeps coming up that it's an air collision threat more than we're wondering what they are. Rogan's asking him what he think. He's not going to speculate on what they are. I mean, he's curious. I mean, they're only 15 feet, I think is what they said, wide.
Yeah, I got
So is it
13, 14 feet is what the estimate
yeah,
was.
so I mean that's if it's got something in it. I sent you something last night. I don't know if I was half asleep and the thing popped up and I watched it, but they were talking about biomechanic. They did actually did autopsies on these aliens, and they were biomechanical. They weren't actually totally, they were like you had talked about before, where they're just maybe they're clones or they're manufactured or they're. And this thing I was watching last night, it's like they cut into them and they have no personality. They're just automatons. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, when we talk about Betty
I'm
and Barney Hill and, those things where, I don't know, that kind of blows my, identified flying object, extraterrestrial
well, I
theory
mean
out of the water,
it's well,
unless
I
we
don't
sent those back.
I'm thinking a highly advanced civilization is that you're basically going to be fully integrated with your technology.
Yeah,
So you may not have the ability to speak anymore like we do
yeah,
because you just communicate with implants like the Borg or whatever
yeah,
mechanism is developed. And then the other thing that I mean the if they're here and they can't communicate vocally and they're using whatever systems that they're using, how there's no way for them to communicate with us. And what if they don't have written language anymore, or they have something that's a computer language or some sort of what if it's all whatever? I don't know what it is. I'm speculating, but their
yeah.
communication and their ability to store and retrieve data may be completely inaccessible to us in any way. So they may not even have the ability or the concept of how to communicate with us. I still like my idea that the aliens are here trying to find out how things work at the basic level because it's been so long since they've learned anything that they
Yeah.
don't know basic stuff like basic electronics or mathematics or
Well,
mechanics or anything like
so
that.
what is a curiosity at that point?
It would be, yeah, it could be,
Or is it us coming back from the
or
future and wondering?
it could be it's just the Earth is just a way station.
Yeah,
It's a good place. You have your bases underneath the ocean or underneath Lake Michigan, and
yeah.
when
That's
it's a place,
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah, it's a place to hold up, refuel, vacation, and then move on to your next destination or whatever. Or
Yeah.
it's just an ongoing probe of some sort, like
The,
Voyager.
yeah, the Betty and Barney Hill story they brought, this came up in the IFO book, the Dr. Michael P. Masters book, stating that these things come from the future. But he talked about when and Betty Hill was describing these creatures would speak, and one of them had, spoke regular English, another one had broken English.
Hmm.
And that, she thought that, and he's speculating that in his theory, which I subscribe to, is that, they came from the future and that, they have some of them master the language. Like you said, they may not even speak. And it's something you have to learn if you come back here to study us.
Yeah.
So some of them learn well, some of them are broken English. And I found that statement fascinating that he brought that out. I mean, he's trying to justify his theory.
But we
And
have translation programs that can almost do real-time translation now. So
sure,
if they're
yeah,
advanced,
but they're
why don't you
well, they're trying to talk to it. Yeah, I mean,
just use their futuristic
yeah,
iPhone to
their
talk with
future
the
iPhone, to talk to you, but they're us. So I don't know. Yeah, yes, that could be
I,
something that they absolutely could adopt, but I mean, maybe it's one of those things where they're doing a scientific study and one of the things is you learn how to speak old, you know, old language and use it while you're here because you're working with these specimens and you're doing whatever it is they say they're doing to us. I don't know. It's hard to say.
they're
Did you ever see Millennium with oh God, who was that guy? they came back and they would they would come back from the future. The future's all jacked up, so they needed the DNA or the people to reproduce or something, and they would come back and they would come on these airplanes.
Oh yeah,
And
so
just before the airplane would crash,
yeah,
it was I think it was called Chris Christopherson. So
it's based on a John Varley story.
I'm gonna watch that movie again. That's a badass movie. So then they accidentally left one of their things on the plane, and then Christopherson found it, and then they had to send some woman from the future back. And I don't want to give away, but I'm sure the whole planet's anyway. So
It's an old movie.
it's old, but it's a '70s movie. It's a really good science fiction movie. It's different, But there anyway. To our what we're talking about is, or maybe they need something. Maybe they need something from our era back in the future because there's some sort of problem that they're having to collect people and when they're talking about these cow mutilations. I'm not sold on, but you know, I don't know. And I saw something about crops. I bumped into something on crop circles. Have you look? I don't want to get too far off what we're talking about with Graves, but those are kind of fascinating. Those stories. I mean, do you think those are man-made? I mean, it's like,
Well, they had a couple guys come out that says they were making most of them in the UK.
really?
Yeah.
God,
So
they're pretty. I don't know. Because of what they are. It just seems like
I don't know. It seems like
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's there's
This is
so
something
much
else to look
there's
into.
so much smoke and mirrors with the UFO stuff. Millennium was a novel by John Barley. I read this a long time ago. Came out in 1983. Temporal paradox, catastrophic breakdown of the fabric of time. Great deal of effort in those destined to die in various disasters. The book was cool. I barely remember the movie. Drafts of the screenplay over 10 years, half a dozen directors until finally filmed in 1989. 13% rating on review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes. So everyone hates it except for you. I thought the book was pretty good, although I barely remember it. So, but yeah, the whole point of you bringing up that movie was, are you frozen? Uh-oh. Frozen in time. I'm going to have to pause and see what's going on. All right. Let's do a pause. Okay. Yeah, we're back. My internet froze. My internet froze for some inexplicable reason, so we're back.
Well, so anyway, Millennium, not to get too far off, it was a good movie.
Yeah, it has it's I like the book. I barely remember it. I'm not a big John Varley fan, and the movie was okay. It doesn't have a big rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but I don't know what the fans are. The critics give it a 13%, but we'll see.
Yeah,
it
was a good premise. I liked it. It's
It,
one of those things where if you watch it today, you're like, it wasn't that good. You know how you really enjoyed something when you were younger, and then you watch it again and went, oh, that didn't hold up.
Yeah, some movies do, some don't. I mean, it's disappointing when they don't hold up.
I like Dirty Harry, or every time it's good.
It's held up. I don't know about the later ones though. I need to go through them and watch those.
No, I've watched all of them. They're all pretty good. They're because it's Clint.
Yeah, but the
Clint's
first
in his 90s. How much longer are we going to get out of Clint? That's going to be a sad day.
Not much longer.
It's the story about him and all of his. He's got kids from like 3. Man, he's had a lot of affairs. We always suspected, Sandra Locke. There's always those stories, and they were all true.
Well, she was.
Yeah,
He married her, right? He was married.
He married her.
I don't know. I don't care.
I had that whole article we sent. We were looking at that one time, and of all the women that he's been through.
Yeah, well,
and why not? It's like it's Clint. Even the women won't. Can you imagine? You're a girl, female, and they fall for him. Because he's Clint.
And he's got a ton of money. So
yeah, and he didn't care about alimony, I guess.
I'm sure he
Some
cared. Robin,
child support.
what did Robin Williams say about? He said something about divorce is where they rip your heart out through your wallet.
That's pretty.
It was good. It's very,
Yeah,
yeah,
could happen like that,
yeah.
definitely.
So,
So with this Ryan Graves thing, anyway, so they spun off into this conjecture about. That was kind of my last note on it. Is about what these things can be. That's why we were just talking about the future and
yeah, yeah.
biomechanical and there's what is the ultra tempestural or ultra. Have you ever looked into that? I think it's something like
No,
there's a new one. Yeah, there's a new one we're gonna have to
yeah, I don't know what
talk
that is.
about. Like they were here, they're from the past. This is as opposed to the
Oh,
future now. They're from the past and they're here amongst us. I don't know if they're underground or they're amongst us or they're under the water. And they say that there's some theory as to these might be another option as to, what it is that is going on, you know.
okay.
So I
So,
think it's still a concern about the nuclear issues that we're having. I mean, Putin certainly, like we were talking a little bit about before we fell out, is that Putin certainly is making noise about doing that. But,
well,
the U.S. has been talking, somebody from the U.S., the Security Council or something, has been talking to his people. And I don't know what they're talking about, but probably the fact that they're pissed off because we're shoveling a lot of, weapons in there and like we're not doing anything.
yeah, I don't know. They're,
If it's really happening.
I
Is it
don't
really
know.
happening, Bill?
I don't know.
Is that
The,
even happening?
I don't know. The Congress is getting ready to send him another $50 billion to the Ukraine.
Which is going to go into his offshore account, which is,
Yeah,
oh.
whatever. It's. I mean, we don't have any say in this stuff, and I don't know what's going on, so it doesn't matter. It's just you just get on with your stuff and hope for the best. I don't think there's going to be any sort of nuclear exchange because the consequences are just too severe, and everybody's just. I think they're
Are you
just too
disappointed, Bill?
stupid.
It's not going to happen.
I don't care. I mean, if it happens, I think it's a good thing. Basically, it's just get it over with. Just do it. We've been hearing our whole life. We've been told our whole life that the world is ending in the next 10 years. We've been hearing that our whole lives, and it
Yeah.
hasn't ended. So it's like quit talking and make it happen. So quit. So either shut up or shut up and start working on the future, or you know, destroy it all. Yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy.
Yeah, that's
The
always the narrative.
yeah, there's stupid stuff. So this guy is Graves is a he keeps talking about the safety, commercial safety, which is
Yeah.
important. And then I think there have been supposed incidents of UFOs hitting aircraft. There's people speculated about a bunch of different crashes that happened because of that. And Rogan asked that question: any plane crashes due to UFO historical? This guy didn't know anything. I've seen some stuff where there's been some speculation on that. And Graves said you got to work on the classification system because it is possible. And we've been saying this, you've been saying this, that it's possible to strip out the classification information from the
Yeah.
videos. And
Yeah.
it's just they just need to do that.
That's what they did with the TikTok, with the gimbal videos and stuff. They stripped out if there's a banner, I guess
Yeah,
there's like a
yeah.
band across the bottom.
He says there's another with all the technical info.
Yeah.
So
And I said, we don't need to know. We don't care. I don't care how they did it. I just want to see the video. And
and
I don't know, the government doesn't seem to want to give. It's like, well, then what I got out of the Admiral thing, I know you were saying that it's because he doesn't want to be involved. I got out of it that he knows all about it. Yeah, we know this is happening.
I don't get that.
We can't
It's
do anything about it.
once you rise to the rank of admiral, you're you're a politician.
Yeah.
And to get to that rank, you have to be a politician. So I'm sure the admiral. It's not that. Hang on, I got a cough. I'm sure it's not that they're. This is what the underlings we always do. We look at our leadership when we think they know more than they do, than whatever. But if you're at that political level, you're just going to look at it and you're going to, I'm not jeopardizing my career for this shit. That's what the admiral was doing. He's going, nope. He's just walking away. He
Yeah.
said, no, I don't want anything to do with this. You start. That's a can of worms, and he wants to be on the Joint Chiefs or some other higher position from what he's got, and that's not going to happen if he starts doing anything with that crap.
I still say he knows about it. Oh, he's not going to say he knows about it in front of all these
They don't know
witnesses.
anything about it. They don't. They don't know
You
squat.
think it's higher than him?
There is
All this
nobody higher.
information?
Nobody knows anything. They just ignored
They
it.
just nobody knows anything about
They
it.
just
It's
ignored it.
flying around, and they just can't figure it out.
8
You know what is
years.
going to happen though is either we're able to suddenly see them with this new FLIR or radar or whatever, and it's the same thing's going to happen as what happened in 47 at Aztec, is that we accidentally shot down several of these things because we had a new radar. Remember?
Yeah,
I
well,
think they're
the
gonna.
radar was
We're not
supposedly
going to.
overpowering the UFOs or causing them to misnavigate or something like that.
So they overcame that, and don't you think the UFOs now will say, "Oh shit, they can see us, so we better make an adjustment so they can't see us anymore"?
Yeah, that will happen.
So now we're back in the dark.
Yeah.
Until we make the next thing.
But the Navy has ignored this for 8 years, and it's because the higher ups are all political. They're politicians, and
Yeah,
nobody's
I
going to
don't
touch.
disagree with that.
Nobody's going to touch the stuff. So it's just like that admiral. He's just going to look at it. He's going to not say anything. He's going to walk away. It's like the guard in Hogan's Heroes, Schultz.
I see
I see nothing, and he's just going to walk away. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to, I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize my career. So there'll be no investigation, unless the only way there'd be an investigation is if a fighter jet had run into one of these things, and then they're just going to say it was a bird. So
Well, that's what Graves is concerned about. He says, something can happen, and then people are going to die because
yeah,
we're not doing anything. And he found himself on this. I don't know if he ever mentioned the name of the organization that he was involved with when he went in front of. I don't know if he went in front of the security. He went in front of a bunch of suits and uniforms, and we're talking about this situation. So he's with some organization now that's. I don't want to say organization. I think it's government related because they ended up having him throw on his uniform. Remember when he told us, which was a funny story about you got to wear your uniform. He says, "I'd already sent my uniform."
oh yeah, and he had to
and I had to call my
put one together, piece one together. Yeah.
And then he was missing a ribbon from one of his units, and then one of the captain or someone said, "Did something bad happen? How come you don't have a ribbon for that unit?" And he's like, told the story. It's like I got as much stuff together as I could for this meeting, and well, I couldn't get that. So
Yeah.
it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Can humanize the thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's going to be able to do, if anything, or if it's going to be another just shell, like a shell company.
Yeah,
just can't do anything.
It's air safety is what his big deal is.
Yeah, well, that's what he's hanging his hat on, and it's not. But I mean, are we, like you said, are they calling it a bird strike? And because there's jets have been going down. One just went down this week. I think
F-35.
The F-35 went down. Those, and if you look, there's about 8 of those have gone down. So I was looking at the safety record.
Wow.
We've lost, and it wasn't just us because we're selling them around, to other countries, and they're going down. I don't know what. They never tell us what happened. It's kind of like, I'm not a fan of the Black Hawk either. I know these aren't UFO things, but the Black Hawk has this terrible safety record, and every time you see something on a Black Hawk, it's like, oh god, another Black Hawk crashed.
The helicopter, yeah.
Yeah, that's one but I don't think that's UFOs. I think they're just pieces of shit, but we use them a lot. Eventually, if you use enough of them, things are gonna happen. Different people work on them, and some are good and some aren't so good. And things can happen.
The Black Hawk's an old helicopter now. It's pretty.
Yeah, it is now. I've never been a fan though.
Yeah,
never been a fan of those. They weren't. They weren't in service when we were in, or at least when I was in. We were in about the same
No,
time.
I think they came in a
Still
little
Hueys.
late.
I rode in
Little,
some Hueys.
yeah,
Did you ride in some Hueys?
yeah, I have.
Yeah.
They came in a little. They were a little later than that. I mean, we were the newest thing I can remember is the Abrams fighting vehicle,
Yeah.
light armored vehicle, and I was out in an area where they were testing, field testing them, so they were
Yeah.
running them all over the place at maximum speed and trying to break them. So you had to be careful because you might get run down by a Abrams coming through.
Did you guys have the gamma goat? Did you when they had them? Did you see the gamma goats? You ever see
No,
those things? They
no.
were like a Jeep that was articulating in the middle.
Oh, I've seen
We had
those, but
those
no, we didn't have
at
those.
Fort Irwin. We had a lot. I never rode in one, but I thought it was the Marines that had those. I mean, it wasn't
We didn't.
us. It was
We didn't. They
it
had
wasn't you guys.
we had old stuff. I mean, we had old things. I mean,
Yeah, it's
we
bizarre.
didn't. That was pre Humvee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what's next?
Anything else on Graves? The next thing,
Yeah.
our favorite, our favorite. Well, I want to talk about the extra tempestral book because I'll
Oh
give you a
yeah,
little
yeah,
update real quick because I
yeah,
led off with that and then
yeah.
I let it die. But you know what he's going through in the beginning is he talks about everything that we've already talked about, Hynek and everything else, and then right now he's talking about linguistics and what his what his perception is of that. He's believes that these things are coming, not these things, these are us. And he talks about the differences between language because as we evolved, of course we couldn't, if we went back in time and we tried to even talk, even if you and I talked to someone in the colonial ages and we spoke to them, we can understand them, of course, but the way they talked is different.
Yeah.
So, and if you go back further and further, and you start talking about our ancient ancestors, Neanderthals and things, there was no speech. I'm assuming,
The
in that, of course,
Neanderthals are they could speak. They thought they could
yeah,
speak.
could they speak?
Yeah.
But it would be, you could the difference about how we speak and how we describe things would be different. I'm assuming, we didn't, the way we talk and the way we describe things. And he talks about, as I discussed in the beginning, what is time, where we're at right now in the book is where is time? What does time mean? Because, can we go back in time? And, the theory is that we can go back in time, but he's talking about it is more difficult to go forward in time. And he talks about some technical terms of the reasoning because that is, but it's still a fascinating book, although it's a little, like I said, it's dry.
Mm-hmm.
But he's he writes well, and it's but he's we're just trudging our way through each process as to, we're not going to solve anything reading the book, but it's an interesting concept, definitely. But I thought I'd give you a little update of where he's at with that. It's well, a lot of it to begin with is what we already know,
Yeah.
or what we
Yeah.
already talk about, as what UFOs are, or what we think they are, and what Hynek and what his role was, and the different organizations, and then Project Blue Book. And what do you think about Men in Black? That seems to be a dying concept. Like, we don't think that was a thing
Oh.
as it's described, in many movies and things that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they had some unusual things, and I've read half of a book on Men in Black when we were going to talk about it at one point, and there was some
I
incidents.
tried reading that thing. It was pretty horrible.
Oh, there's something else. This one I
Is
was
there
reading.
something better?
I don't know. I was reading
That wasn't the one.
The Truth
There was
Behind the
another
Men in
one.
Black. I mean, I got it all marked up and stuff. About halfway, they had some really interesting cases with unusual agents interviewing people that had UFO encounters in England. And
Were they England? Were these Men in Black in England, or were
they were in England, and they
But
people.
were they American Men in Black, or were they
I don't.
English
I
Men in
think they
Black?
were English Men in Black. But
Their
they
own Men in Black.
I guess. And they were,
Yeah.
they considered them to be a little different and unusual, at least one of them. They considered him like some sort of foreigner or something and had talked odd. And that might actually tie in with your extraterrestrial
Yeah.
thing. What if this guy was an extraterrestrial that was interviewing people that had
That's a
had
good,
experiences?
yeah, that's an interesting concept.
So, but
Definitely.
yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Men in Black. It was a thing, and was with a lot of people were saying it was CIA, Hynek. I can't remember who else was. Hynek was somebody was writing or doing inquiries to the CIA or the was like the CIA office in Chicago, and the Chicago office of the CIA had sent people out to interview people that had seen UFOs in the 50s, and that caused a bit of a stir because they were saying the Men in Black. I think that's one of the original stories for the Men in Black was these CIA guys that were interviewing people, and then people were saying that they were being threatened to not talk about it.
Yeah.
And I don't
Well,
know.
the thread is you're non-American. The thread was it evolved into some horrific thing, but it was really like, you're not being American. I think you talked about it. You're not, you're not American. You're not supporting America if you, continue to talk about this thing. I don't know if I'm going to pull your fingernails out
Well,
thing.
we do that now. I mean, you say something against
I'd
some
be rattled if somebody from the government came to my door and told me to stop talking about stuff, even today, even though I'd probably talk about it.
Well, how do you know they're really from the government?
I don't know where they're from.
Yeah,
My neighbor.
you don't know. You don't know
They're
who
just
they
my
are.
neighbor. What'd you think about that weird video I sent you of those trucks rolling through my neighborhood at 3 o'clock in the morning with all that noise?
What was all that noise? Why were they making
I don't
some?
know what that was. I
Why?
sent it for everybody. Eventually we'll be able to put these things on and let you experience them. But I have ring cameras, and I have I have 3 ring cameras in front of my house, and only one of them picked it up, the doorbell cam. It's too bad because the one I have in my driveway is it's a newer one, and the resolution's very good. The doorbell cam is the worst one. The doorbell cam and the other one are worst or older. They don't have the technology.
Okay.
And they would have showed the one on my driveway cam, that thing would have I could have read probably if there was writing on the trucks, but I thought they were I thought they were escort vehicles. You know what I mean?
Were they
They
vacuuming the
were, they
road?
were,
They sound like
well, I
vacuum
thought they were
cleaners.
escort vehicles for something bigger that they were bringing up into because everything's a conspiracy with me.
I
It's
couldn't
something bigger up into in the court.
I couldn't
But
tell,
as
but
I
were they vacuum trucks? Did
Yeah,
they
I don't
have?
know if they were, but they were just pickups. You know what I mean? And so I froze one of the images, and you could see like a vent on the side of the thing or some kind of
Hmm.
thing. I don't know if really are they authorized to do this kind of crap at 3 in the morning?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't know.
think so. I
It
mean, we
was.
have noise ordinances.
Did
This
it
would
wake
never
you up?
be. Yeah, I was fell asleep in the game room.
Okay.
I woke up, I heard all this noise, and I got up, and just in time to see these 2 trucks, and I didn't see. Like I said, I thought they were escorting a larger vehicle. So I looked on the ring camera, and all it caught was the doorbell cam, which caught like one of the last truck through. And then I stood there and waited because I thought whatever was going on, and all I saw a couple minutes later, the 2 pickups just jammed down the street with their lights on with no noise. They were quiet
Huh.
now, and they jammed down the streets, and the cameras didn't pick up any of that. It was bizarre. I don't know what it was. I don't know so I sent it to, we have next door, Carmichael Nest Store.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent it there because people comment on things and nobody said anything about it.
Nobody else
So
saw them or
nobody
anything.
else experienced it.
Huh.
Debbie said, did you dream it? And I said, no, it's on the camera. But I don't know. I just assumed they were those escort vehicles. But anyway.
I my impression was that they were just vacuuming the street,
Yeah, I think
the
they're
street
probably, but
cleaners or
I
something.
thought it was streets. I thought it was a street sweep, but it's a weird thing. Two pickups. I
Well,
don't know.
I've seen pickups
Yeah,
that
they
have
have like they
vacuums,
do it. What they do is like
parking
parking
lots.
lots.
Yeah, I've
Yeah, but
seen that.
they're on this public street. That would be kind of a small.
I don't
I
know.
don't know. Doesn't
I
make
don't know.
any sense to me. I wish I should have walked out there. I figured they'd
Yeah,
whatever they were doing,
flag
they'd
them
stay
down.
up there,
Flag them down.
jump in the middle of the street. What are you doing? I didn't dare ask anybody else. I would have thought I was crazy. So the next thing is our favorite subject, but not the show. We're going to talk about Skinwalker at the Pentagon today. From the basement, and what's the guy's name? Who's the
Uh,
basement guy?
I don't know.
Crazy dude that we like now. I like this guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Green something from the New York
Yeah.
Post. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Green something. It's by their notes.
So, but he's from the basement.
The basement office at the New York
basement
Post.
office.
It's really good little news things about unusual stuff.
This is part 2. We discussed part 1 last week where we just talked about the Skinwalker. Or actually, we didn't talk about Skinwalker. It was the Elizondo thing, wasn't it? Was that?
We
was it
talked
Elizondo?
about
Gotta open up our episode and see what it was we discussed because there's so much.
yeah, there's so much stuff I could
Yeah.
So
So
I don't know where
we
they are.
anyway, this is part 2. So we're at Skinwalker, the Pentagon, how this ties in. It was interesting. This is very interesting about how this ties in with Bigelow and everything. And
Oh
Harry
yeah,
Reid.
yeah, Harry
And
Reid.
and the fact that basically it's spun. I mean, they talked about how we know Sherman. They didn't talk about. I guess Sherman was the longest Skinwalker owner, and then they saw nothing. Then it was sold off,
Well,
and
Sherman.
then
So the stuff I've read about Sherman is this guy talks about Sherman had it, from what I've been seeing, and I was looking at the chapter in the Utah UFO display, and Sherman seems to be the primary witness for all this stuff that happened at the ranch. And everything that he experienced, his wife saw a little bit of the stuff, but he's like the primary guy.
I thought, was he the longest owner?
The longest owner was the Myers, who bought it.
Okay, Myers didn't see anything, or that they
didn't see anything.
Anyway.
They owned it from 1933. The land was seized from the Indians in 1932 from the reservation and sold to the Myers. And then the law was changed, so you couldn't take the Indian reservation land anymore.
So Sherman bought it. How long did he have it?
2 years.
So he realized it was junk. He made up a bunch of stories about what he saw.
I don't know, but the Deseret News, which is like a big newspaper in Utah, was writing articles about his experiences.
Yeah,
and
it's a story.
But he apparently is the major thing. One of the things that came out in the interview that he was by the guy in the Utah UFO display, Frank Salisbury, he was saying that the story about the dog that grabbed the calf through the fence, and they shot it and shot a chunk off it and ran off, and it just didn't even react when they shot it. Sherman told this guy that the story was greatly exaggerated. And Sherman talked to this guy a lot, but he stayed away from specifics. It was sort of a weird, I don't know, he talked to this guy, but then he, I don't know, wouldn't go into details. He don't explain it very well. But all the stories about the unusual experiences and things at the ranch came from Sherman. And apparently the no digging on the property has nothing to do with the Myers, which the previous owners. It has to do with oil rights. So when the Myers family, the brother and sister sold the ranch, they retain the oil rights on the land. So the no digging on the ranch has nothing to do with, or maybe even the mineral rights. They probably retain the
Yeah.
mineral rights. So the no digging on the ranch has nothing to do with, I don't know, spooky stuff. It has to do with mineral rights. And what else?
Yeah.
Oh, and then they were saying that all the locks and stuff on the house, the double locks and all the doors and the chains for the big dogs to guard the house on the inside when the Myers were living there. That's apparently, Sherman said that wasn't true. He says the only
Yeah.
locks on the place were on the cupboards in the kitchen. And they didn't have, and the Myers had a three-legged dog, so they did not have big, massive guard dogs to keep whatever at bay. It's
What happened to his leg?
yeah.
Where's the dog's leg? Did a big dog get his leg?
It got injured. It just lost a leg. So they had when Mrs. Myers was living there, she had a three-legged dog.
So as it moves on, so he made up this is my theory, that he wanted to off the land, and he made up a bunch of stories. That's what I think. And then
Well,
who caught the eye of the articles you're talking about in the newspaper is that the ASAP guy caught the guy of the ASAP.
Well, it went into the Deseret News, and that caught the eye of Lakatsky.
Yes.
And then he
who
contacted,
happened to be the ASAP original director, right?
yeah. And then they got Reed involved, and they got Bigelow involved, and Bigelow apparently bought the ranch cheap too. He didn't.
Yeah.
He got a good price on it. I think my speculation is that Sherman was getting a lot of his cattle sort of killed through mysterious things were happening to his cattle, which I think was
and like you say, was probably the Native Americans,
the neighbors who were hate the
upset about them,
the Indians that hate the cowboys, and they're just messing with them. So he was losing too many cattle to stay in business, and so he needed to get out, and so this was this worked to get him out of it. Bigelow bought the ranch. I don't think the guy guy made any money other than getting his money out of it. And then they asked him to come back and take care of things. So the guy's there, and he's still saying, "I'm seeing stuff." But when Nins came in, they didn't have any people at the ranch. So this guy would go, "Oh yeah, I saw a orb."
Well,
and then a day later,
real quick, you got to go back to Lacasti and how they put bid out for anybody, Honeywell or anybody, to come in and do this investigation under the guise of not UFO. I don't know what the premise was, but Bigelow picked it up. It was a $22 million contract.
Well,
he was the only one.
What they probably did was the bid went out and only went out for like a week.
Yeah, and Bigelow already knew it was coming because he was pals with Reed.
Yeah. So if the notice went out for a week, might have gone out less than a week, or could have even been out for a day. And so the solicitations, you can only submit solicitation while it's open. So they opened it, closed it, and Bigelow was the only person to submit for it, and he got the grant. So
and Bigelow, and then while he got it, they were supposed, Bigelow hardly went there.
Mm-hmm.
But he put people there, and he got $22 million, but he put like a group of people.
Apparently, they didn't even have people there. They had Sherman, from what I'm reading in this other book. They had Sherman at the ranch who would come in from his other ranch and take care of stuff. And they also brought in security guards. So they had like 3 security guards on the ranch. Who there's another article which I hadn't gotten to yet, and these guys were always being asked by Bigelow for reports. And so their paychecks were dependent on positive reports. Reports of something happening.
And bonuses if they could prove it.
Yeah. So they, it's like Sherman would report something, and then the next day or a few hours later, 12 hours later or 6 hours later, they'd fly up in Bigelow's jet and run to the ranch to go look at something. They didn't have people there permanently. They had some guards, and eventually that was just down to one guard. And Sherman going there and taking care of the ranch, and Sherman would go, "Oh yeah, I saw something," and they'd tell him, they'd show up, and then they wouldn't see anything.
The Dino Beaver. So
Well,
they
yeah.
weren't actual. Well, what they're saying though in the show is that they had people there that were scientists. They didn't.
They
He
didn't live
said,
there. They'd come up for like 2 days and they'd
you know,
leave. And then they had
who were the drunk
cameras.
guys that made up stories?
Yeah, and
Were
they
they
had
the security people?
yeah, and they'd have cameras there that the wires got mysteriously ripped out, and but
Well,
the
they
other
couldn't.
camera didn't see anything.
Yeah, and then they had no paranormal things, and the Dino Beaver that came loping up to them slowly, but nobody had a camera
Well, they had
to take a
cameras. They just
picture.
didn't take any. We were so startled. They never took any pictures. They had
They were
cameras and all
so
this stuff set
startled by
up.
the Dino Beaver that they couldn't get a shot of it.
And this other article that I started reading that was interviewing the security guys, one of the security guys was saying that the film camera wouldn't see anything, but the digital camera would. And he's going, "It's dust." He says it was dust on the
Yeah.
sensor of the digital camera. It wasn't on film. So there was a lot of, from what I'm seeing from the interview of the Shermans and the neighbors in this other book, when Bigelow was monitoring the ranch and doing stuff, they were pretty half-assed about it.
Right.
I mean, they would come in and they would go, "Oh, we saw something," and then they would send someone up a day later to go, "Oh, we don't see anything." So they did
Yeah.
not have, and they had guards there who were supposed to report on unusual phenomenon, and then but they didn't have permanent scientific staff monitoring the place, except for the cameras that came up, and then the cameras, they got ripped out. The wires got ripped out mysteriously.
Then they would send specimens to University, Nevada, Las Vegas, with, they would send specimens of things, and they would end up being muddy water and burnt wood.
Yeah,
and,
it was nothing.
wood with hydraulic fluid on it. Whoever was sending these things in were just random, whatever. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, there was nothing there.
The whole thing is just, unbelievably stupid.
And
And I'm just going on record saying this freaking show is stupid. I don't, I'm gonna watch it
oh yeah,
so I can make
the
fun
new
of it.
show, but the primary witness for 90% of the stuff that happened on the ranch was Sherman. And
Yeah.
I don't know. So you got one person, and then there's speculation. Oh, well, maybe he's sensitive. And in this book that I was just looking at, they're saying, well, he's sensitive to the thing, and the space alien entities are just focusing on him.
Right.
Like, okay. All right.
He's full of crap. This whole thing is nonsense.
Um,
Google or whatever is
yeah.
dumb for. He's smart. He's not dumb. He's making a show and he's making money.
the guy that.
But I'm here to tell you, they have to stop the madness. This can't go like Oak Island, where they're going to last years and years and years. Stop. I'm going on record and I'm saying, stop the madness. There's nothing.
They're making money. So as long as the show makes money and they can sell it, they will continue to do it. It's like Oak Island.
I'm going to name this episode Skinwalker Ranch, Stop the Madness. Because it's
good
like
title.
we have to...
Good title. Hey, we're at an hour, so let's wrap it up. You got...
All right.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Probe Podcast. We welcome comments, questions, or requests to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook, Alien Probe, and our website, alienprobe.net. Twitter and Instagram at Alien Probe Pod. Check out Alien Probe Podcast on YouTube at Alien Probe Podcast. Like and subscribe. Thanks a lot. We've got a couple comments. We'll go over those next week. Thanks to our producer, Saigon Robert Anthony. He sent me a video earlier of him eating raw shrimp. I'll have to let you check it out, Bill.
Okay.
And thanks again, Dr. Bill, for joining us.
All right.
Watch the skies.
Hey, watch the skies, everybody.
See you next week.
And catch us on MySpace.
All
right. Bye-bye.
That's the only thing left.